Here's a guy who thinks that anybody who believes anything is religious.
Is atheism truly a mere rejection of the idea of God?
That depends on which definition of atheism you're using. Many atheists define it in such a way as to include agnosticism. Some only define it in such a way as to affirm the non-existence of God.
Is it simply disbelief in God? Or is it some other ideology, usually disguised as a disbelief in God, or disguised as a more rational and free-thinking way of living?
To say that atheism disguises some other belief system makes it sound like atheists are deliberately hiding the beliefs that they do have. Some atheists genuinely are nihilists, and those who do subscribe to some belief system will typically tell you what those beliefs are. If they have some kind of ideological belief, they don't usually say they're atheist in order to disguise it.
Now, today I want to challenge the notion that atheism is in fact as free-thinking as atheists would like you to believe that they are.
Oh no, he's on to us. He's uncovered our shameful secret that many of us believe things, and that we get those beliefs from our educations and experiences and don't just pull them out of our asses. Everyone will be shocked to hear this, I'm sure.
And prove that, in fact, atheism never removes religion, it simply replaces it.
How do you replace something without removing it? I'm not replacing my old couch if I just buy a new couch without removing the old one. I just have two couches now. Maybe what you meant is that we're not replacing religion per se, but rather replacing one religion with another. If that's your argument, I'm curious about what you think a religion is.
Now, let's start with something really fundamental. It seems to be that human beings are hardwired to be religious creatures.
Citation needed. Where do you get that idea? Did you get it from the Bible?
Okay?
It's ironic that you put a little Buddha in there, given that Buddhism doesn't say that there is a God who created the universe.
Through thousands of years of human history, we can see that atheism, or not believing in God, is a fairly new idea, relatively.
In order to know that, we'd have to know what people believed during the 200,000 years that Homo sapiens existed before writing was invented, which is awfully hard to do.
Okay, so it seems that human beings are hardwired to believe in God. Now, you might say just because that's the way that it's been done, or that's the way that it's been thought of till now, doesn't mean that it's the right way for things to be or the right way for you to think about it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what your point even is. Even if we're hardwired to believe in something, that doesn't mean that it's true. We actually have very good evidence that we are hardwired to misperceive certain things because it makes navigating the world easier.
However, it does seem, and I'm going to get into this, that it is hardwired and that you cannot be truly irreligious, that you cannot be truly an atheist.
I get the impression that the word truly is about to do a lot of heavy lifting. Maybe this guy also has some ideas about who is truly a Scotsman.
So, when an atheist rejects the idea of a God, whether that is a biblical style Abrahamic God or a more abstract Eastern idea of God, the rejection of God does not simply end there. I don't believe in God. That doesn't end there.
Sometimes it does. Some people have no further convictions at all. I don't buy the idea that every nihilist is faking it.
It is almost always replaced by some kind of other ideology. And you see this with religion being replaced with Marxism or communism. These are state worship religions. They have,
People who aim for a stateless, classless, moneyless society worship the state? Even when it comes to the folks who don't wish to abolish the state, is wanting there to be a government that provides a social safety net the same as worshiping it? A lot of the folks who insist that atheists are really religious simply point to atheists liking something and saying, aha, you like this thing, therefore you worship it. Liking things is religion somehow.
Structure is like a religious structure, and they do believe in an objective truth, depending on which ideology it is, that would take the place of God. So
this guy's argument seems to be religious people believe that it's true that God exists, atheists believe that different things are true, therefore they are also religious because believing that anything is true is to treat it the same as God. Am I really being all that unreasonable if I fail to see that as a very strong similarity?
Being an atheist in those senses does not seem to reject God, it seems to replace God. So those people are religious, and you can see this with things like climate activism. They have dogma, doctrine, there are heresies.
First of all, climate activism is not exclusive to atheists. I'm not convinced that they even constitute a majority of climate activists, so how is this a replacement for God? Secondly, climate activists are open to be convinced that climate change isn't happening. I want to protect the climate, but I am entirely open to be convinced that it's not in any real danger. That would be about the best news I could possibly get. And that's a major difference between climate activism and religion. You want what you believe about God to be true. Climate activists would very much like what they believe to not be true.
There are sins. You can be excommunicated.
How can you be excommunicated? If you use a plastic straw, does Greta decree that you can't get into heaven? What sacraments will you be denied if you buy an SUV?
It functions like a religious system in every single way.
Except for the way in which you have to believe in things for which there is no evidence.
Now, you might be thinking, well, I'm a rational atheist. I don't get into that kind of nonsense. I simply live in a rational way based in science. I only take what is rational. I don't get involved in silliness, and I don't believe in God, and I don't have some kind of religious system replacing it.
Well, you seem to define religious system so broadly that it includes believing anything is true or caring about anything. I think that there is a meaningful distinction between religious beliefs and values and non-religious beliefs and values. Every belief that I hold can be changed, and my values are based in my conscience, not in Scripture. That's the difference.
Well, the problem with claiming that is that, well, when we're talking about Western atheists or people who are atheists who live in the Western world, what a lot of those people, and you might be one of them, and I want you to think about this for a moment, what a lot of those people do is that they either fail to recognize or refuse to admit that their rationality and liberalism exists within the frameworks created in Western society of a Judeo-Christian worldview.
Oh, was Aristotle a Christian? Was he a Jew? I don't recall reading about how he came up with his system of logic while surrounded by Bible scholars. Ironically, this guy's got it backwards. Lots of religious philosophers, especially in the Middle Ages, got their ideas from pagans like Aristotle and Plato. Western rationalism did not grow out of Judeo-Christian ideas. It was the other way around.
That the Western society that this rationalism exists in, those moral concepts being embedded in the society evolved through Judeo-Christian society in the West.
And outside the West, they evolved through their traditions. What's your point? Many of the values you would claim as being Judeo-Christian are globally shared, so why are you implying that atheists are hypocrites for sharing them too? Do you think being rational would not be a value that anybody held if Judaism and Christianity had never been invented?
And case in point, when you look at atheists outside of that worldview in the West, you tend to get to things like Marxism, like communism. You get state worship.
Those also grew out of Western Christian philosophy. Marx's greatest inspiration was Hegel, and Hegel's philosophy takes directly from Christianity. Hegel believed, for example, that Jesus' death and resurrection were a manifestation of his dialectic, and the dialectic was the basis of Marx's theories of history.
You get figures like Stalin and Mao.
You prefaced your claim by saying that in the West, when people reject religion, it results in figures like Stalin and Mao. But neither Stalin nor Mao were from the West. Also, that cartoon was of Kim Jong-un, who also doesn't live in the West.
You get things like fascism, although, of course, fascism can exist in a religious context as well.
Then what does it have to do with atheism?
My point is that they are not different from each other in their structure and the way that they behave.
Fascism behaves like religion?
They are religious systems, which is why sometimes they can overlap. Now, the other thing is that when you reject any kind of spiritual ideas, God or spirituality, it can only go on for a certain while. You can only have that going on for a certain amount of time. And we do see that as well. For example, characters like C.S. Lewis, who was a devout atheist, a rabid atheist in his own kind of way of discussing it. He eventually found his way back to religion.
So because he became religious again, there is therefore a time limit on not having spiritual beliefs?
And then you have recently characters like Richard Dawkins. I'm a cultural Christian. The society of the West is built on Christianity.
That's not recent. He's always said that. Dawkins did not return to Christianity or spirituality.
I would hate to see that be destroyed, because what he is realizing or starting to admit is that the moral frameworks adopted by rational atheists would not exist without Judeo-Christian values built and developed throughout Western society.
Which of these values do you think were completely absent prior to the development of Judaism?
On the flip side, and again, this would be a topic of debate here, but I'm just going to give one example, the idea of somebody like Nietzsche, who said, God is dead, we have killed him, and was afraid of the nihilism that would come. He proposed ideas as to how to go about dealing with that, and yet his ideas couldn't save him from insanity. Now, you might say that there's all kinds of other reasons why he went insane. Maybe he was insane to begin with.
Nietzsche didn't go insane because of nihilism. He went insane because of syphilis. To everyone who helps me out on Patreon, you're a big help. Thanks so much.